people have a deep, abiding respect for the constitutional law that created this country. And some people don't. It started liberalism. Mug Club can stop it.
Join Mug Club today for $89 annually or try it mugless for $9 a month. You can sign up at louderwithcredit.com/mugclub for the entire catalog, including Nick DiPaolo, Brian Callen, Mr. Guns and Gear, and of course, Alex Jones, along with 100% more of this show. It's Columbus Day. Did you know that?
Yay.
Happy Columbus Day. Indigenous Peoples Day is as the people say, who you want to avoid. It's a big thing now, Columbus Day. People want Indigenous. I mean, it's tired. We've dealt with this for a while. So we're going to get some fast facts on Columbus Day that you may not know. But I don't know if you're aware of this. There was an assassination attempt, or was there, on Donald Trump this weekend. We have a little bit of information that maybe hasn't come to light. We'll talk about that. It's not exactly what you thought. And then JD Vance has actually proven to be a net gain, a net asset for the Trump administration, whereas Walz seems to be a liability. Hasn't that switched? And we're going to go through some of his press this weekend on illegal immigration, the housing shortage, and of course they tried to fact check him, but why everything that he said is correct. And this all goes back to this election. Hey, do you believe that the United States of America has the right to be a country with its own culture and with its own standards for what we accept as far as immigrants at this point? I think, remember 2016, it was racist for Donald Trump to say they're not sending their best. We need to build a wall. The wall was equated with racism. Today, most Americans support some form of deportation. And I think that's why Donald Trump is 10 points ahead in the Vegas betting odds, the Polymarket spread. So you can comment below if at some point today when we discuss immigration, which I have no doubt will happen, you see this. Head on over to Rumble. It's a live show. Weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, because we're not going to self-censor on YouTube, and we don't know how long we'll be here. Probably not for election. Captain Morgan, number 2 CEO, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It'll probably be me that gets us kicked off, which will be kind of ironic.
Happens a lot.
Absolutely. How are you?
I'm good. My voice is a little loud in my headphones, but it's me, because I'm not used to this.
Should I yell?
I think my ears are a little bit blocked.
Get it out a little bit? No?
Yeah, there's a virus going around, but who cares? When you hear this, you know him. Love him. October 26th, Bricktown Comedy Club, Oklahoma City. Mr. Josh Firestine, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy because we live in Texas now. Mm-hmm. And in past years, there's been an argument every year about how Dad doesn't want to go to the pumpkin patch.
Yep.
Because the pumpkin patch sucks.
Yeah.
God, it's a horrible
What does
day.
that have to do with Texas?
I can't go. It's 93 degrees outside.
No. There are still pumpkin patches aplenty.
No, these people are crazy.
No. I went to one, and my daughter, when she was 2, picked up a chicken. She caught a chicken. Huh. She was 2 years old.
Do you get to keep it?
Well, you would think that it should be.
That seems like the rules.
They've done away with the take a chicken, leave a chicken box.
Was this the Tyson pumpkin patch?
No, I turn around and she has a chicken. She's 2 years old. She's holding. Now, of course, this chicken had its beak sawed down and its detalon just like, kill me.
Just torture.
But,
yeah,
pretty much.
You know, she caught it. So
impressive.
You have to go to a pumpkin patch.
Okay, well, if there's free chickens out there, I'll check it out.
Yes, there are. Well, there certainly are if you are a Haitian migrant. Do you think they say everything like, do you think instead of taste like chicken, they say taste like a Canadian goose?
They don't.
So Kamala Harris
tastes like people.
Is still running. She's still running for president. I don't know if you know that. And yesterday she spoke at, I think, a church. And I've listened to this. I've watched it, rather, 5 times. I still don't understand it, which brings us to today in Kamala.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know? Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
I get it. She was talking about her vision quest. So that's what's been going on.
I don't know.
Oh, hey. That's speculation.
Listen, there are emails, but we haven't verified those yet.
I actually think that Kamala Harris is like, if you've ever had a friend on drugs who has a bunch of bad ideas and they think that they are great ideas, I actually think she really believes in her mind she's like a Barack Obama. She's an inspiring speaker, and she thinks all this doublespeak, all this word salad, I've got them in the palm of my hand, and there's nothing that her handlers can tell her.
No.
As far as this isn't working the way you think. No, people, they're feeling it. No, they're not. Well, agree to disagree.
That's not how this works. By the way, when she loses the election, like a week or two later, everybody's going to be coming out. Oh, thank God I don't have to work for her anymore.
Yes.
All this fake support. People are like, I only did it for as long as I could. Okay, guys?
Well, what people are going to say is, well, and Donald Trump could barely beat one of the weakest candidates in modern history. That's what they'll say.
Yeah.
No,
that's what they'll say. They'll just try and say, oh, he got lucky.
After the media and big tech and Hollywood and every union in America that, supports Democrats, of course, propped her up. Yeah, well, sure.
I think she's doing very poorly. And yes, you can look at the polls, and you can't always trust polls. It's just sort of one of the facets that you take into account. But here's another one. If Kamala Harris was doing very well, I don't think she would be running ads, especially ones that, by the way, use the Lord's name in vain blatantly.
Yes.
In Detroit, a real ad.
They said we were dead.
Detroit waving the white flag, the city filing for bankruptcy.
That our best days were behind us. That living here is like
living in hell.
But you know what we said? We said, F that. We rebuilt ourselves. We looked out for each other, got our hands dirty, and put in the hard work. And this guy, he don't know anything about that. We are a city of winners, of up-and-comers, of builders, the Motor City. Bigger and better. Here, we believe in freedom. We don't bow down to nobody, and we never will. And so what Donald Trump doesn't understand, or care to learn, is that when he said,
our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president,
that he should be so goddamn lucky.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Yes. Speaking as a born Michigander and having lived there for quite a while, we should be so GD lucky to have the fourth highest murder rate in the United States. A 65% population decline since 1950. And homes that are being given away for $1 that still can't be sold. Someone budgeted, took your offer into account, and refused it.
It's because of the neighbors.
I think that commercial was narrated by a real estate agent. I would be lucky if Dallas had $4 homes.
Let's actually, I'm sure Pops Crowder can send his in. His house sold for, was it $11,000, $7,000? A nice home in like a middle-class neighborhood. That's Detroit. And I don't care how many coffee shops and chili dog stands hipsters want to tell you have opened up and it's coming back. If you want to see the poster boy for Democrat policies, go to the city that was the wealthiest city in the world, certainly the country, in the 1950s, that has had a Democrat mayor since 1962 today, without exception, and you get Detroit. And of course, they have the national Pure Michigan ads for tourism. And every now and then, they let the mask slip and the facade comes off.
When it's time to get away from the stresses of your work and responsibilities, you can always find solace in the welcome arms of your friend Detroit, where the last thing anybody finds is a job, and the furthest thing from anyone's mind is responsibility. A city where its citizens greet you with a warm hello and toothless meth grins. A place where the sunrise is as eager to spend its morning with you as the crackheads who line its streets. Where the unemployment is so high that its proud citizens can enjoy enough time to slow down as they contribute to the country's worst murder rate. A place where 7 out of 10 of those murders go completely unsolved. And if the gangs don't get you, the roaming packs of wild dogs will. It's a city that's eating itself alive and been entirely run by Democrats and unions since 1961, where a Republican scapegoat is just as elusive as any end in sight. A crystal ball for the future of the country in a city that's as likely to change as its students are to graduate high school. It's why even as the city declares bankruptcy, you can always count on it to be waiting for you with one hand out and the other ready to shoot you in the spleen. A place where your unlikelihood of finding a job is eclipsed only by your chance of getting out alive. A place that's pure Detroit.
The Cider House Rules song doesn't seem appropriate.
I mean,
it was
like,
good.
You princes of Wales?
England?
Kings of New England?
I can't remember the prince's part.
All right. Doesn't matter. As an upper, it's Columbus Day today. Isn't that fun? Indigenous Peoples Day. Hit me with something, Billy.
Yay. That was not the soundboard. That was Billy.
Yay!
Oh, look at that. It's a holiday.
And in the theme of deconstructing any type of national pride or identity because America bad, according to Kamala Harris, Columbus Day, all of that patriotism, the whole new world, it needs to change because we are racist or something.
Oh, boy.
So I'm wondering, would you support efforts on a federal level to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day? And why does that matter so much?
Sure. Yeah. And why it matters is, to your very point, we have to remember history. And this question, I think, really is connected to the last question about our morals and our compass.
Our compass.
And our goals.
A globe.
And our protractors.
Aspirations. We have to remember our history.
I was raised by a middle class.
Uncomfortable, to your point about truths, though it may make us.
It's like every answer, she's just giving some words to prolong her answer.
Yes,
She's like, give me some time to think about the I still don't have one.
I think it's important because it's a question.
But first we have to understand
about Columbus. She said, and Columbus is a historical figure. He existed, just as we exist now. We didn't exist back then, nor does Columbus today.
And
shut up.
I am not Columbus. That's
so let's go through some of these myths that are the premises, by the way, for when you change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't know if you know this. Spoiler, I'm not a fan of calling it Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't even like calling it Indigenous Peoples. So you know what? Let's debunk the most common myths here in 5 minutes or less. Toolman, start the clock. All right, here we go. Myth number one, that Columbus committed mass genocide, right? You'll hear that everywhere. That's why we need to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll make all of the references available at loudearthcreditor.com. Here's the truth. Diseases killed natives. They were mostly killed by infectious diseases. The settlers didn't even know they had brought with them, okay? A big part of that was they came from animals, domesticated animals that had not been domesticated by the Native Americans. A big one of those would be horses. So this whole Native American horse culture that you've seen, them with bow and arrow on horseback, no, the only time they would have been using the horse, they would have been carrying a lever-action Winchester because that's about the time that they were finally able to ride them as opposed to chasing them all off a cliff, rendering them almost extinct. That's what happened. The idea that we had taken them out, or Columbus did specifically with genocide. Also, I don't know if you know this, germ theory was not discovered until the 1860s.
That's after Columbus.
That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
By a bit.
Here's another myth as to why we need to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day. Because Columbus was awful, he was barbaric, and clearly there is no argument of the fact that Columbus was a rapist.
Columbus had no problem with his men raping and killing them. There are horrific accounts of Columbus selling Native American women and young girls, along with brutal stories of his men killing and torturing Native people and even babies for fun.
Okay, some of that I can't necessarily verify, even babies for fun. Like, I don't know if they had a smile on their face.
Yeah. They were upset about it. They were kind of hating, like, oh, I got to go back to work today, killing these natives.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Oh, a baby.
But I tell you what, exactly. If you do what you enjoy, you never work a day in your life.
I guess.
So here's the truth. I'm sure people did bad things across the board back then, but these specific claims that you see of rape and the brutality, it come from a political enemy, right? Fernando de Bobadilla. You may not know Fernando's name.
Bobadilla. It sounds Italian.
And a lot of people just take it at face value. I don't know if you know this. Now, there probably were some examples of women and children being killed. But what happened is they probably saw the Native Americans treating each other so poorly, raping, pillaging, scalping, cannibalizing. And then they turn into animals themselves, and you only look at one side of the equation. Here's another truth that you may not know. Columbus, very flawed. I'm not saying that he's Jesus Christ, but he did order his own men to stay away, specifically from Native American women. Contrast that with many Native tribes who specifically took women as basically rape poles as part of the spoils of war. This is from Columbus's journal. He said, I have given the men orders not to take anything from them against their will. So they have paid them for everything. I cannot believe that any man has ever met a people so good-hearted and generous, so gentle, that they did their utmost to give us everything they had. Columbus also, by the way, made his men observe the 3 monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, which I don't know if they all did. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Like, he's like, hey, do that. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, sure, we'll be chaste. But the point is, you can't just look at one side of the equation and think that it was a whole peaceful Native American culture. And these animals just came in with the rape and diseases, engaged in biological warfare before germ theory even became a thing. Here's a third myth, kind of piggybacking off that the Native Americans were peaceful until Columbus showed up. Okay, you'll hear this. This is why we need to turn it into Indigenous Peoples Day. Truth. War was all over this country between tribes. You will still find territory that is in dispute depending on the tribe who claims they were the last tribe to be there, which means there was a tribe before them to this day for proof. Just look at the Black Hills. That's a perfect example right now. They all hold hands saying, we are the world. But the fact is their forefathers killed each other's forefathers in record numbers. And crazy enough, there are more Kiowa than ever in recorded history today on genocide. Earth. Yeah, if that's a genocide, you screwed up. You didn't end the Holocaust with 6 million more Jews than when you started. So not very good at the genociding is my point, even if there were acts of cruelty. Columbus arrived, there were 2 tribes who were dominant. There were the Caribs, there were the Arawaks, okay? Caribs were vicious cannibals. The Arawaks were passive, friendly. I don't know if you know this. Typically, if you have a passive-friendly tribe, they live in constant fear of the vicious cannibals.
Because of the eating.
And so...
What a time for that one.
And so the Arawaks were terrified of the Caribs. Here's another truth. The Indians, by the way, when you talk about them respecting the earth and Mother Nature, they hunted multiple species into extinction, almost the buffalo. And they did not, by the way, use each part of the animal, as you have been told. They would literally hunt. They would scare an entire herd of buffalo off a cliff, and they didn't have refrigeration. They could keep one. To give you some more proof here, again, doesn't mean that Columbus was perfect, doesn't mean that settlers were perfect, but this idea that white, bad, new settlers, bad, Native Americans, all good, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's the same reason that you would not want to live on any Native American reservation today, unless you want to live in every episode of Cops. If you go to the Spanish conquistadors, I've talked about this a few times, and I know you're going to say this, there's no way this is true. I didn't believe it when I first started reading up on this back as a teenager. You think of the conquistadors, right? You think of what happened with the Aztecs, right? The Mayans, the Incas, depending where you go. How many conquistadors do you think came here? Cortez. You would think, right? There were tens of thousands of Indians there, hundreds of thousands. There were 800 conquistadors. 800 who took over. Do you realize that that doesn't happen unless there are so many natives here who have been enslaved, raped, and tortured that they will take their chances with anyone else, including people with red beards and funny hats? That's what they did.
Yeah, even though they were laughing the whole time at those hats.
Yes, they were.
They were willing to fight.
Yes. So,
oh my gosh.
I still say Columbus Day. You can comment below. I don't know how you celebrate it, but there's one more reason that those on the left may hate Columbus. This is what I think is the real reason.
Yeah?
He was a Jew.
What? That's
yes, he was Jewish, at least partially Jewish. And looking back, it's kind of surprising. How did we miss that? You would think, hey.
Why is the head so small?
It's been the whitewashing of Columbus. You're just as much to blame.
All right, 6.5 minutes.
We went into overtime. It's okay.
I apologize.
Pull that Photoshop back up.
Columbus.
It's like the character from Beetlejuice.
Yes. Bring up Columbus.
Doc, come on.
I would be terrified of this guy too. Show it with your long fingers and your tiny head.
She's a monster.
For people on audio. Oh, no.
Switch to video for people on audio.
Wait, was that one of the Brooks brothers?
Kanye West, like, I knew it.
Whole country founded on it.
Josh is turning red.
Oh, excuse me, sorry guys. This is a holiday.
Yes.
Have some respect.
Small-headed holiday.
How do you celebrate Columbus Day? Firewater and boom boom sticks? So do the natives.
Well, I mean, it's only 8 a.m. But 9 a.m.
Our law's not theirs.
They make me live this way. All right, sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, white guy came in and forced you to buy a Tesla. All right.
Tesla. Okay.
Let's,
So tired of it.
it's a Kia Spark, whatever their electric car. I have no idea.
It's a soul.
It's a Rivian.
They play it as you drive off the showroom floor.
So, really quick, we need to give you a bit of a recap here. I don't exactly know what to make of this, other than the media is very quick to jump on a story regardless of the facts or information. Sunday, the California police stopped what initially appeared to have been a third assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And the reason that people believe that is because you had members of law enforcement and the media say that that is what happened.
The way it worked yesterday is only people that were allowed inside the perimeter, the outside perimeter, in a vehicle was if you lived there or if you had documentation that said you were going to this rally in the form of,
This guy's on Reno
of an
911.
email with VIP credentials or press credentials. We have his name as Vem, V-E-M, Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R. During that investigation, the deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was what we in law enforcement would recognize as one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens. During the investigation, obviously those identification documents were found in addition to a loaded handgun and a shotgun.
Okay. Jeez. So, by the way, I don't know if you know this. Couldn't care less if there's a loaded handgun or shotgun. They always just throw that in there, like a loaded gun. Well, okay, what are you going to throw it at a perp? Of course, you should have a loaded. But
They had an
passports, ID, unregistered vehicle. You can check all the references. Okay, that appears to be true. The guy's name is Vem Miller. But according to the Riverside County Sheriff, this was put out. He said, "We probably stopped another assassination attempt." So that's where this all started. It was like, oh my gosh, there was an assassination attempt because that cop said we stopped an assassination attempt. What doesn't make sense is that the would-be assassin was let out on a $5,000 bail.
That's pretty low, I feel like.
So again, this started to come unraveled as a condition of his bail. Also, this is kind of odd. He's only allowed to wear one outfit in public. Let's see if we can find him here. Yep. Okay. Looking back, we should have. Let's go to the next slide. We have another. That's not even easier. Trying to find him.
Yeah, it looks
a little nearer.
I think I found him.
That place.
And then the final one.
Where is he?
That's a bad idea.
I know he's one of them.
Someone should have caught it.
I don't find him.
Bad idea.
So here's some kind of weird details, and we don't have all the information here, so you can send it in or comment below. It doesn't seem like this guy is a would-be assassin.
No.
We actually found a clip on Rumble this morning, or an hour and 15-minute video from Vem Miller himself. He vehemently denies that he had any intent to kill Trump. Seems like he's actually been a pretty consistent pro-Trump advocate. He told the Southern California News Group, "These accusations are complete bullshit. I'm an artist. I'm the last person that would cause any violence or any harm to anybody." He said that he did have a special entry pass. He never fired the guns that he had. And then he actually released a video explaining quite a bit of it. But here he is. Here's what we know. They caught him, $5,000 bail. All right. Then he released a video, and he provided some corroborating evidence that he is a self-declared Trump supporter and actually a conservative.
I'm a Trump caucus captain. I've collected votes for Donald Trump, and I'm also a Trump team leader. I would say in the last 4 years, I've been to a countless number of Trump rallies and Trump events. I have been, and this is again verifiable, pretty much this far away from the former president to a point that I could touch him. I've talked to Don Jr., I've talked to Eric Trump. I know a lot of people within the Trump family and the extended family, and I have been integrally involved. And if I was to guesstimate, and this is again verifiable, I'm sure the Trump campaign has records of all the guest passes they've issued me, the special passes they've issued me. I mean, we're talking about potentially, I don't know, 20 something more. I don't even remember.
Okay, and here's a video from Vem Miller at the RNC. Again, this is one of those issues where the media pulled the trigger too early, and we'll get to the sheriff in a minute. It seems like he may be a guy looking to make some headlines, but here is Vem Miller at the RNC.
So one thing I don't get is that everything at this convention, at the Republican National Convention, is cashless. This whole place is cashless, so I don't know. See, that's a Republican National Convention behind me. Wonderful people, wonderful time. Just not happy that it's all cashless.
Because now they can track you, man.
Yeah,
the sodas you purchase.
Some people may think that he's maybe a little bit nutty. Sovereign Citizens. It's a group I wouldn't say it's necessarily a violent militia group. They're people who believe that they're basically some certain laws don't apply because they're unconstitutional. You know. This man, Vem Miller, he's the founder of an anti-mainstream media outlet. It's called America Happens. He founded it in 2008. We don't necessarily need to go to the clip. There have been documentaries that he's created on the deep state, on the problem with the swamp, Democrats. It seems like he's been pretty consistently pro-Trump. It seems like this is a misunderstanding, but where does that misunderstanding take place? I think there's kind of one of two things that could be happening here. The sheriff wants to get his name out there, and I'll get to that in a second, where he seems to be one of these guys who jumps the gun quite a bit and inserts himself into any political issue. And it seems like maybe the media would like to use this to try and say, look, this is the radicalizing of Trump supporters, where we can't even identify the difference between his Trump supporters and his own supporters and crazy people. I don't know, but the problem is there's a lot of misinformation out there on social right now, on X. It's really hard to parse through what's true, so we'll make all these references available. This is interesting to me. The same sheriff in 2020, Chad Bianco, he made a huge scene, and of course, cameras were rolling when he was kneeling with Black Lives Matter.
Vote for me this November.
Lick those boots.
So I don't like him.
This is stupid, right? Nothing really happened. They pull the guy over. There are guns in his car. The Secret Service says that this wasn't likely an assassination attempt. They're not even worried that the president's life was in any danger, and that used to mean something. I know now that maybe doesn't mean as much as we thought it did in the past.
Right.
But then the FBI is not even investigating it as an attempted assassination or anything involving that. He got out on $5,000 bail, and he's a right-wing conservative guy that maybe goes a little too far right sometimes, potentially. This isn't an assassination attempt. This is seems like the AOC of assassination attempts. I was 6 buildings away kind of thing.
It seems like this all stems from the sheriff saying, like, yeah, we probably stopped another assassination attempt.
Yes, that's it.
It pretty much comes from one guy who seems like he was really quick to want to be the hero who helped stop the assassination attempt.
Yeah, you're probably not going to find a guy with a bigger penis than mine.
That's right.
So might as well just stick with me, honey.
That's why it hurts when I kneel, because I kneel on it.
Oh, my gosh. That's what it sounds like. That's the energy, you know?
Anyway, I don't know if there's that much more to touch on with that. It's it's everywhere right now, and so many people have conspiracy theories, and I don't even know that this warrants any kind of... It's just a guy who probably had some weird stuff in his car.
Yeah. He doesn't like to be tracked, so maybe he has multiple IDs because he doesn't want the government to track him.
Right.
That one's a little weird, man. The passports and the licenses, that one's like...
I'm not concerned.
I am.
Why? That guy gets caught everywhere. Are you kidding me?
Because it was difficult for me to get mine. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't, but, you know... It should be.
You think that guy's getting through customs with a fake passport? Come on. They're flagging him immediately.
He's not going anywhere. No, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
all right.
Didn't get by
and he's
TSA.
certainly not paying cash everywhere.
Speaking of not going anywhere, that's pretty much anyone who decides to sit down with JD Vance.
Yeah. They keep making this mistake.
Yeah.
I'm going to get him.
When I see JD Vance go up against someone who's clearly biased, the left, in these interviews. It reminds me of that scene in Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou where Jeff Goldblum, I think it's Jeff Goldblum, disciplines the other guy's dog with a rolled up newspaper. That's basically what JD Vance is doing with these interviewers. Remember they were saying that Walz had a higher favorability than JD Vance? Yeah. Remember they were saying, this VP debate could be really important. And then they said, it doesn't really matter at all.
Really.
I do think it had an impact. I do think that the VP debate had an impact, and that's a big reason that Donald Trump is gaining momentum. I think that Kamala Harris is very unlikable, and I think J.D. Walz was really brought in just because they thought he was folksy and likable.
Tim Walz.
What did I say, J.D. Walz? Oh, son of a bitch. Admonish me. That's bad. I really think that I think that Tim Walz was brought in to try and counterbalance the intense dislikability of Kamala Harris. He doesn't really have many accomplishments, so that's why they brought him in. JD Vance was brought in because obviously, Hillbilly Elegy was very popular, but I think he was brought in to shore up the base with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And because he is a surgeon with interviews. He is able to handle interviews from opposing viewpoints, and that shouldn't really happen in what we're supposed to see as unbiased media. Have you seen, by the way, Kamala Harris, the gaslighting number she's saying, and Donald Trump won't do a second debate. He won't sit down with 60 Minutes. Why is he hiding and riding out the clock? I'm like, oh, okay, we see exactly what
After
you're doing.
he asked for 3 debates, and by the way, the next thing they're pivoting to is release your medical records. He's like, I've released doctor stuff, and I'm doing 2-hour stand-up rallies. What do you want from me?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's see Biden's medical record. What are you talking about?
Yeah, now finally she's concerned about the fitness of a person being a president of the United States.
Let's see how you trimmed that turkey neck, lady.
What I see is I see desperation.
Yes.
And I see desperation from Walz. Maybe you guys could bring up, there was a Walz interview this weekend, actually, where he really was flailing quite a bit as a good contrast to J.D. Vance. And I ask you, look, setting this up, have you been impressed with this guy? And do you understand that we are really not that far away from, if something were to happen, God forbid, with President Trump, a J.D. Vance presidency? How would you feel about that? A lot of people haven't really discussed that at this point. So, were you
I'm
looking
good with it. I just gave you a thumbs up.
All right. So before we get to J.D. Vance, let's set this up because they have been pulling no punches. The Trump campaign released a scathing new attack ad highlighting the southern border crisis.
Open borders, deadly consequences.
Border crisis. Record high crossings are putting a strain on cities across America. It is a full-blown invasion.
Armed Venezuelan gang members storming an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado.
When people talk about migrant crime, this is what they're talking about. Biden and Harris had created a program to bring them in under humanitarian parole.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been released into the United States.
Abolish ICE. Yeah, we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Manuel Hernandez was booked by Colleyville police just 2 days earlier and released the day before the robbery.
That's pretty tough.
He's winning on that issue by quite a bit.
That's a bit like the Scrooged Christmas Carol promo.
Yeah.
You're like, show me Scrooged. They're already voting Mr. Trump. They're already voting for you, Mr. Trump. That's not enough! They have to be so scared to miss it! So a lot of the interviews centered around immigration, around illegal immigration. They tried to press JD Vance. They tried to bring up some facts that aren't facts. So let's go through these here. One was with, I believe, the New York Times, and one was with ABC. Let's go New York Times first. Lulu Garcia Navarro, not to be confused with Navarro, former Republican on The View, tried to press Vance on, and this is weird. I don't know why they think this is a winning argument when they're trying to obviously help Kamala Harris, saying that, well, you actually need illegal immigrants because we need them to do good paying American jobs.
The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large portion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question because we know that back in the 1960s when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. But of course they did. Gotcha, bitch. I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
the country is much bigger.
A fundamental.
The need is much bigger.
So let me give you the truth here. Okay, let's go to then and now. In 1969, undocumented migrants, they made up about 0.3% of the population. We had a housing surplus.
Wow.
Okay, that was a big deal back then. Now, we actually have had record inflation. Homes are about 2.5 times more expensive than they were in the 1960s. And undocumented, let's just say illegal aliens, make up 5% of the population.
It's a huge difference. 0.3% versus 5%.
And now we have a housing shortage of 4.5 million units. So the point that he's making, they're like, people don't agree if they look into it. Well, hold on a second. We had fewer illegal aliens back then. And we had homes that were more affordable and more homes that were built, so we had a surplus. Now we have a shortage, and we have about 20 times the rate of illegal aliens, and people can't afford them.
And the houses in the 60s are still standing.
Yes.
Well, some of them are. Not in Detroit.
Not in Detroit. I don't get that argument that you say that 25 million people are here that shouldn't be here, and that's not a contributor.
Right.
Well, it's not a so you take 25 million people and you get rid of them, there won't be more homes?
Right.
Is that what she's saying?
Yes. Yeah. I was about to say, she's like, we can't build all the homes we need. I'm like, well, guess what? When you get rid of 25 million people that don't need to be here, frees up some housing.
Yes, it does.
It makes me feel like I'm missing something here.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're not.
It was a guess.
You're not missing
simple
anything.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, it seems like it would be very simple.
She was like, 1/3 of the people are immigrants that work in construction, and a large portion, give me a number.
Yeah,
a
how many of these people?
Undocumented workers that are specifically specifically building houses.
But don't you
We've already established that you don't think black people could do this, or Asian people, or white people could do this job. We've already established that, Ms. Navarro. You think only Hispanic people can do construction.
Yeah.
Now, how many of them are illegal?
Well, and here's another point. I've watched this Overton window shift, where they used to say these people are only doing jobs that Americans don't want to do. They're cleaning. Remember what was her name? Osborne, the daughter. They're cleaning your toilets. They're picking lettuce. And now it's like, oh yes, that's right. You mean one of the most common occupations since the beginning of time, and certainly in the United States of America, construction, contracting work. No native-born citizens want to do that. We've now moved well beyond manual labor minimum wage jobs, and we're talking about highly skilled jobs, carpentry, electricians, plumbing. Yeah, this doesn't make sense anymore. They used to make the argument, they're only taking the jobs Americans won't do. She now just made the argument they're needed to do the kinds of jobs that Americans actually really want to do and are good paying jobs, but we need them so that we can pay them less.
The same jobs that she would have be unionized.
Right.
In every state, so that no illegals could have. That's where it gets confusing. You start advocating for two different things.
I don't think there's a single white guy in this office who hasn't worked construction at some point or another.
Yeah, I was going to say I've worked construction. It was union work, so it's a little different than regular home construction in Texas or Arizona, or whatever. But union work in Seattle, dude, there was no illegals on the job, not a single one. You couldn't even get in the job site.
Mine wasn't union work, but I did some with Johnny Boy in the summer, and I did some here too as well, and it was good paying. It was great. It was summer work. Yep. And the guys I worked with were all older white gentlemen who, by the way, made a good living. So. Have you guys noticed that shift?
It's in the Amish community, though, so let's be honest.
That's true. Well, everything was wood. By the way, we build one hell of a rotary phone. I don't know why we're allowed rotary phones and not smartphones, but we are allowed rotary phones.
Well, they're made out of wood.
Yeah. Yes.
So you gotta watch that rock, though. You might lose a.
But if it's your neighbor, you can hear him clear as a bell. Here's the next exchange. Here is Navarro, by the way, of course, an unbiased journalist. Again, talking about immigration, unemployment, and trying to push back on JD Vance. He gives them no wiggle room.
You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
to work in construction.
Of course, you could.
Pause. Pause. You could get what? You could get Americans to work construction? Tell me you're out of touch with America without telling me you're out of touch with America. Really? Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me that there are middle-class working Americans who are willing to work construction and make a decent living? Yeah, not everyone goes to Princeton, sweetheart.
That's so funny.
She expects the only way people get into construction is standing outside of Home Depots.
Yes, exactly.
That's different. That's day laborers.
That lady lives in a multi-million-dollar home and thinks that it's just really cheap and easy to do it, to build it.
Yeah, I know.
Idiot.
I remember that you said they're not taking any jobs that you don't want. She can't believe that plenty of Americans would like to work good-paying construction jobs. Okay, let's continue with the clip.
It's 4.1%. Most
the
people
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But most people who don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old.
Military?
What?
They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society, is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages. I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma, get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality.
So to be clear, you think Americans work construction. I'm sure the media have a field day with that. Here's the truth, okay? We've fact-checked all of this. I really have no suggestions for JD Vance.
Yeah.
Let's look at the male labor force participation rates. 1969 was 80%, meaning 80% of able-bodied males were participating in the workforce today. That's 68.1%. 68.1%. So again, if what they were saying was true, we expect to see maybe the opposite trend or at least remain stable. We're not.
That's a question. Labor force participation trends. What is that? A specific type of job, or is that just
it means people who are actually involved in the workforce. So in other words, if you are unemployed for a certain amount of time, and then you say, you know what, I'm just not looking for a job anymore, you give up on life, they don't count you as unemployed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so if you have a 3% unemployment rate, let's say, with an 80% labor force participation rate, that's very different than a 3% unemployment rate when you only have a 68% labor force. But in other words, there are far more people out of a job. They're just not counted as unemployed.
Yeah. Was I missing something too when she said military?
Yeah.
Are military personnel not? Are they counted as unemployed?
They shouldn't be,
because they're quite employed.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't know what she's saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a valid question. She makes no sense.
She does make no sense.
And of course, this, by the way, follows the announcement. Some people think there might have been, a little bit of promo going on in Vance's all-American woman construction company with the results you see for yourself. He's trying to plug this. Yeah, it's an HGTV show.
I don't.
That's bar up there.
Well, I think that she should start with a shirt.
Here's another truth. The reason why is it's definitely cheaper to hire illegal immigrants than to pay Americans. So 2.1 million construction workers right now that we know of are paid under the table. You can go back to a video that I taped, I believe, in 2017, 2018, where I did the Home Depot thing.
Yeah.
And I stole the jobs of illegal aliens because people would say they're working for pennies. They were all working back then for $30 an hour. They were doing a project. The guy would drive up, say 6 hours, $200. And I'd say, you know what, I said, hey, you know what, I'll do it for 20 an hour. I'll do it for 15 an hour. This idea that these people, meaning illegal aliens, are being abused, exploited, and working jobs that Americans don't want to do it's just not true. And so, yes, it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. We need to go after not only the employers who employ these people illegally as a way to cut corners, but we also need to change our policy. This is really simple. This election, when people say, well, what is it that you would do? If I'm Donald Trump, if I'm JD Vance, say, okay, going to reduce the corporate tax rates so that people can employ more Americans. We're going to shut down the border and make sure that we stop these illegal crossings. We're going to deport some people, and we're going to open up our own energy, all of our own reserves so we can be a net energy exporter like we were under the Trump administration. Those three policies, we start those day one. That makes a huge difference. Just go with that. Let's go with another exchange here between ABC's Martha Raddatz, who's trying to fact-check.
This one's the best.
Vance on the Venezuelan gangs. You've seen those, right? The roving migrant gangs. Just watch the clip.
People are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? You seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Get him off the air. Get him off the air.
Executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
That was so wonderful to just drink in. She was waiting for her moment. She knew that this was going to come up and it was going to be a line that he said, so I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there. Goes to her notes and gets obliterated because, yes, everybody's like, you think a handful's okay?
Well, he just showed right there that she does think it's okay.
Yes.
She thinks that people who live in apartment complexes don't deserve the same rights as everybody else. And that, a couple of apartment complexes are taken. No big deal. Those are low-income Americans. Nobody cares about them.
Exactly.
I'm on ABC with dumb hair.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still not convinced that wasn't a ghost interview.
It might have been.
But the immigration issue, I don't think there's an issue that highlights more clearly that the Democratic Party and the media, entertainment, industrial establishment, that they don't care about you. Right? We just saw it play out in real time where it's, well, actually, these people are just taking jobs that Americans don't want to do, or we need them so that we can build homes. In other words, they're saying, it doesn't matter that Americans could use the work.
Right.
These people matter just as much. I'm going to say something here that'll offend some people. In the context of the United States, okay, illegal immigrants don't matter as much. I'm not saying as human beings in the eyes of God. I'm saying as far as the rights, and by the way, privileges, and priority being given to, if you're going to give it to a group of people, native-born Americans, or people who are here legally, I'm going to say illegal aliens do not matter as much in this country as legal citizens. Deport them. Done. Hold on a second. It's only a handful of apartment complexes? Okay. If it's one apartment, not complex, one apartment, it's too much. Because that's someone who is being victimized.
Yeah.
By a predator who has no business being here in the first place. Do you put yourself in this situation? And we've talked about this quite a bit when we've done the Change My Minds. Imagine if you have any children or you have a wife or husband, okay? Your most loved relative is raped or murdered. Okay, it's terrible. It's awful. Now imagine how much harder of a pill that would be to swallow if you find out they were murdered by someone who had no business being here, who had a criminal record, and was cleared to come in anyway. Usually you're just mad at the world, right? Awful, tragic acts happen sometimes. It doesn't make it any less awful. But you're not mad at the world at that point. You have someone to be mad with. And that's the people who enacted that policy. And it's the media who tried to sell it as a virtue. So here's the truth. Venezuelan gangs have actually taken over multiple apartment complexes, not just in places like Colorado, but places like Texas as well. And the law firm that brought that issue to the Colorado police, by the way, is a Democratic organization, or at least overwhelmingly supports Democrats to the tune of 96.5% of their donations have gone to Democrats. So it shouldn't be a political issue, and it shouldn't be an issue that you dismiss. There are people, American citizens, who live in those apartments, and they live in hell. And it's so difficult for them to live with because they know that it is one of the few areas where government can actually do something. Let's be honest, the government can't fix everything. The government can't stop natural disasters. And even if FEMA was running like clockwork, they wouldn't be able to save everybody or help everybody. The government can't actually give you enough money so that they can save your business if you're going into bankruptcy, right? The government can't really change your day-to-day life all that much. But the government should have a military. The government should be able to protect the citizens of this country. And the government does have the ability to make sure that criminals are not coming here in the first place. It's one of the most basic functions of government. That's a really tough pill to swallow. And the media says, it's just a handful. Well, it's not. It's not just a handful. It's millions of people who are affected by it every single year. And right now, they've actually taken over entire apartment complexes. Think of what that symbolizes. That means it's not just someone coming over the border in the middle of the night with a coyote. That means they've all migrated to one area. They've congregated and put together a plan, and no one has stopped them. That should happen, in my opinion, 0 times in a civilized country. So let's wrap this up. Right, under the Kamala Biden administration, we've had record inflation, had a huge housing shortage. We've had men dropping out of the labor force at unbelievable rates. We've had illegal immigration, of course, at all-time highs. We've had 18 million at least when you just include the crossings, those getaways, the visa overstays, the fly-ins, right? Just that CBP-1 app that we talked about. And all of this, and the media says, it's not that big a deal. Why would you vote for Donald Trump? Mean tweets. Look at what has happened in this country in the last 3.5 years. I can't remember, and genuinely, if you can comment below, any time period in my life, 37, where we have seen the direct catastrophic results from government policy play out in one term. Then again, it's very, very rare that you have people who sign 90-something legislative actions, I believe it's 80-something executive orders, to undo all of the policies of the last guy and make it worse year over year over year. I don't remember that we've ever had that in my lifetime. I'm sure someone could give me some example that may be comparable. I think this is why Donald Trump may win in a landslide. There are enough Americans out there going, yeah, we feel the impact of this right now. 18 million in only 3 years. Yep, we see it. And I think that's why for the first time you have a majority of Americans who actually support some kind of a deportation program. And that maybe is why the National Border Patrol Council, who, by the way, Kamala Harris said endorsed her, in case you've forgotten.
Even the Border Patrol endorsed it. It was endorsed by the Border Patrol Union. The Border Patrol endorsed it.
Which is probably why the border agents actually endorsed the bill.
Oh, wait, sorry, did I? No, they endorsed her? No, sorry. This is what they actually did.
If we allow Border Czar Harris to win this election, every city, every community in this great country is going to go to hell. On behalf of the 16,000 men and women represented by the National Border Patrol Council, we strongly support and endorse Donald J. Trump for President of the United States.
Well, it's almost like they said the opposite.
That's weird.
Of what she said. And you've heard me say this. The strategy is lie, cheat. Lie, cheat. That's exactly what we see right here. Kamala, where is it on the media right now that the National Border Patrol Council has endorsed Donald Trump? Wouldn't you think that the media, considering those are the people she's embarrassed, she has lied to, saying they've endorsed me, and I believe it was their pinned tweet for a while saying, no, we didn't. Yeah. But they hadn't officially endorsed Donald Trump. She told you something that was the opposite of the truth. A lie, we used to call it back in the day.
We used to call it.
She repeated it. The media didn't fact check it. She repeated it, I believe, on Oprah as well. She repeated it at least 3, 4, 5 times. Okay? And now the Border Patrol Council comes out and says, no, we actually endorsed Donald Trump. So lie. What happens now? They don't cover it. The next step is cheat. Do you understand that? They don't fear you catching them in their lies. They just make up another lie. And once the lies stop working, once they're not having enough of an impact, they cheat. We saw it with the Hunter Biden laptop. We saw it with the mass mail-in voting changes, for example, in Pennsylvania last election. I don't know what we're going to see this go around. But we're getting to the end of that runway here with the lie. Coming up is the cheat. Please look out for it. And that's why we are gearing up for on election night. Hey, the best case scenario is we need to do nothing and Donald Trump walks off with a landslide. But we expect that it could go back and forth for a while. The election live stream of the century. We do need your support here. We will have not only a live electoral integrity map where you can actually see the states that are called, also states in dispute, but we're going to have live journalists, investigative journalists, boots on the ground in every major city of every major swing state. That night, you can click on that map and see any tomfoolery that's taking place, and you can also help report incidents that we will then vet and get up on that map. We are going to have the resources and the foundation here that no one else will, including, by the way, CNN, ABC, CBS, or Fox News. And it's been a multi-million-dollar undertaking. We want to live out the election day with you. We did it last time. Mm-hmm. We're banned from YouTube after that took place. And then we were banned by midterms. But we want to be here with you. There's no reason to go anywhere else outside of Rumble and tune in with us. louderwithcreditor.com/Mug Club. You can click that button below. Go Mugless between now and election to help us make it happen. If you don't want to sign up for the year, every little bit counts. We are not funded by a foreign caliphate. Now, just as a palate cleanse, let's contrast JD Vance with the blundering of Mr. Walz.
I want to go back to something you said on Tuesday. You said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. But the campaign came out later that night, and they said that's not their stance.
Yeah. Well, it's not the campaign's position. And the point I'm trying to make is that there's folks that feel every vote must